Hey there, gang, and welcome back to the Legends of Abhaile recap series. It's been a few minutes, and a lot has happened since our last installment, so it seemed like a good time to get our new viewers caught up to speed.
But first, let's talk about Impassable Creations, makers of handcrafted, super floofy, awesome dice bags. They've also got initiative trackers, pillows, scrunchies, character sheets, and more. Check them out today at impassablecreations.com and don't forget to use the code YBIT24 at checkout for 10% off your order.
And our last announcement before we hop into the recap, have you been watching Shadows of Valoria? It's our prequel series set 800 years prior to the HeckRazors story, far to the south of Austria. It's an amazing story with over 300 views just 2 days after premiering. If you haven't been watching, you've got time to catch up before part 2 airs tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here at the Tavern.
Without further ado, let's dive into the recap and The Last Crusade.
Touching down in the Crystal Heart district at the center of Corvin and Vargo's homeland, Austria's eponymous capital city, our heroes were ushered through the wide and enchanting Luminary Plaza towards the Aether Spire, the heart of Austrian bureaucracy, and headquarters of the Novanarchy. Leading the way is Vargo's employer, Adeli Vinash, administrative assistant to Javan Rizan, the hierarchist of that very council. During the brief jaunt through the beautiful marble and hanging gardens of Austria, Adeli warned of unrest in the streets, an uprising of the working class, putting faith against artifice. As in recent months, the Novanarchy had been doing research on the Moondrop, a massive crystalline island just off the coast from the city docks, considered by many a common folk to be a blessing from the moon goddess Corellia, a holy site. While they've been reporting it as a non-violent situation, there have been a few isolated incidents where violence has broken out, a few fires intentional. Arriving at the Aether Spire, Adeli introduced the HeckRazors to Javan, and they gave her what details they had about Maya Kunai, her schemes and machinations for the island of Miyamoto. Desperate to prevent a war between new nation-state friends, Javan asked for just a day to confer with her peers, to help keep safeties on the triggers before anything untoward should happen. This would also give her a little time to investigate the provenance of the blade Corvin had taken from the butcher of the North Groves.
Thankfully, the Novanarchy opted to foot the bill on some extremely comfy rooms at the swankiest hotel in Austria, the Crystal Fluted Chalice. They also hooked the party up with some walking around money. Corvin found a quiver that could also hold his filched sword, and Scylla had the draconic plate mail armor resized to fit. Before heading off to bed, Vargo wanted to stop in and check up on an old confederate of his, a kindly old elf named Barnabas, a tinker who ran a shop down by the docks. While en route, Shala got stabbed in the kidney and they were attacked by ninjas from the shadows. After a brief scuffle, the HeckRazors sat about, surviving assailant, but he was silenced as an ornate arrow that has been described verbatim in another video on this channel, HeckRazors watching this. This arrow was of a design never seen before by anyone in the party. The archer who fired the shot vanished into the shadows of Austria's skyline.
A little rattled and a little bloody, the HeckRazors continued to the home of Barnabas Smythe on the waterfront of the Pearlescent Quay. Here, Reunited with his old mate Vargo, Barney showed off his little shop right out of his basement. Bonafides, emporium, and arcane curiosities. You see, Vargo gets credit for the creation of Abhaile's first crossbow, but in reality it was just his concept. Barney designed it. He simply didn't want his name attached to an instrument of death. Having said that, he did create another instrument of death for Vargo, a wicked scoped crossbow with no arms and a rotating cylinder. He called it the Third Rodeo. Finally, after a long day, the gang headed towards the Silver Heights, where the crystal-fluted chalice awaited to send them into a blissful slumber in a comfortable bed for once, where Scylla had a brief conversation with her patron, the great worm Valoria. The following morning, after a lovely breakfast, the HeckRazors bed back up with Adelie and Javon, where Corvin learned that his sword once belonged to a great Kenenzi warrior, who they presume to have died 300 years ago, but apparently has chosen to retire to a simpler life on this distant island and raise a family. Javon relayed that the Austrian ship Adrian would be raising anchor and departing Takor Harbor with the Borellian horizon. So the chance for a scuffle on the island is set off a multinational war was temporarily halted. But Maya had to be deposed, so she made sure the HeckRazors knew what that likely entailed.
With a clear connection to the island, Adelie teleported the gang back to Miyamoto, just outside the town of Nikaranu, home to Anna Makani, a kindly old witch, and her family. However, upon their arrival, they found the town in flames, abandoned, the clear signs all around that a powerful spell battle had taken place. At the same time, Jet, the crotchety old kobold who'd helped the HeckRazors out with closing the first fissure at Keoahu, that was where they had saved Tila from the shadowy corruption. Well, anyways, old Jet came walking up the road into Nikaranu, finding the same. Buildings burning, doors smashed in, and not a soul around. As he crept in for a closer look, he passed an illusory barrier, revealing the unscathed, but still abandoned town as it truly was. From his vantage point, up on the roof of Anna's house, Jet waits for the right comedic moment. From his vantage point, up on the roof of Anna's house, Jet waited for the right comedic moment as the HeckRazors enter the illusory dome as well. Finding no sign of Anna or her family, the HeckRazors had but one objective: Maya. They decided to head out for the relative safety of Jet's beachfront cottage, a dingy little hut that he'd claimed years back upon arriving at the island. It sat only a few hundred feet away from the newly constructed walls of Takor Harbor. Arriving in the relative safety of Jet's cottage, the gang was reunited with Tila, Shala's friend and fellow Tomoatawi, who'd been captured by the darkness before the HeckRazors had freed her. She'd been crashing with Jet for the past couple of weeks, doing a fair bit of problem drinking with the old kobold. Vargo and Jet vanished into the shadows of the evening to do some scouting, getting a feel for the vibes in the nascent port city. They noticed guards armed with weapons crafted crudely of shadow glass, stationed throughout the town, and a large estate belonging to Maya Kunai, apparently appointed the Stormlord of Takor Harbor by the Austrians.
The following morning, the group employed both magical and practical disguise, which, in Corvin's case, means boldly announcing yourself at every opportunity, and headed into town, started with Jonami Rael, proprietor of the local smithy, an Austrian venture called the Arms of the Empire. Finding him sympathetic to their goals, he informed them of a few other people they should talk to. They made friends with Bukalia Holsworth, owner of Bucky's General Goods and Snake Oils, and learned a story of corruption amongst the guards. Stories of missing children and stolen heirlooms led the party to the home of Leilani, a singer at the local tavern, the mother of a little girl kidnapped by the guards. The group immediately agreed to help, learning the guard was the estranged father and the girl was taking for insurance The party set a plan in motion to get this guy drunk at the kind of doped Undercurrent Tavern and Inn. If you're thinking the Mariposa Saloon from Westworld, you're spot on. They get this guy drunk and follow him back to his home, where they brutally interrogate him, learning his part in Maya's plans and that the kid is underground. Jet told Leilani he'd try not to kill him. He tried. With a clear direction, the party set out, finding a few options for ingress into an apparent underground network of magma tubes. One, under the Anstrian Commission warehouse. Think East India Trading Company meets powerful wizards, and that's the shitstorm that is the Commission. Oh yeah, they're deep involved in all of this as well, for some reason. They bought Jet's cottage for a stupid amount of money and a winery. Seriously. Wow, that was a tangent. Anyways, they elected to try a more subtle approach, traveling up the beach to a small cavern near a bubbling lava pool with only a few guards, found by Shala and Tila as they burbed out and ran some aerial recon.
As a gentle rain fell, the party approached under cover of night and attacked, finding a much more formidable foe than anticipated as the guards drove wicked daggers into their chests, their souls becoming an anchor for 3 demons of the Shadowfell to merge with their bodies, becoming the sorrow sworn of anger, despair, and ambition. After a brutal fight, the party discovered the contents of the cavern, crates and crates of shadow glass ready for export. Following the cavern into the warren of magma tubes, they found an oddity. In a room full of annealed metal and inhabited by a violent pillar of white-hot magic, this was the portrait studio, a research laboratory belonging to Grace Blackwell, Weaver of the Fifth, High Archmage of Dunamis on the Ivory Council of Aloria, a city destroyed over 800 years ago. Talking, I guess, to this pillar of light, they learned that it actually was Grace Blackwell, who through a bit of shitty luck got bound in place to a surging ley line, or brushstroke as they call it. Connected to the very soul of Abhaile, she had been trapped inside the studio for almost 3,000 years. Corvin talked her ear off, asking every question imaginable to an arcane supercomputer, and the party learned a good deal of critical information. For example, it wasn't just one kid taken, but like 14. Afterwards, Grace asked the party to free her from her torment of mortality, and the task fell to Shala, firing a lightning bolt at the Pillar of Magic, destabilizing it and freeing Grace Blackwell to collapse and pass on. An explosion of force blasted out, temporarily dispelling the group's magical items, requiring them to take a beat to reattune. Shala also found the robe she was wearing could now be attuned, so that's pretty nifty.
Pressing on, bound and determined to find and save these kids, the party burst into a large cavern filled with hundreds more crates, and a sleeping guard. As Jet began to interrogate him, Nalani Rowe, Butcher of the North Groves, had come at last for her sword. Attacking the party with a wooden training sword, she laid into them, pummeling Shala and smashing Corvin with 4 hard hits, driving him back. The party followed, dumping everything they had into her, until she fell, at last. But in her dying moment, she scored the hit that dropped Corvin. He was, of course, quickly brought back, and Nalani was secured, unconscious, but alive. With the only direction being onward, the HeckRazors set out, again, hoping to find and save these kids.